Welcome all to the hellish high temperatures of summer roguelikes and the show that looks at all roguelike games or roguelite games, old, emphasis on the old this time, or new or modern remasters of them. Welcome. I'm Scott Berger, the head of this podcast, and I think we can work together and resolve this episode in a way that benefits us both. And with me are my co-hosts, who are rake, brutal, and without mercy.
Hey, it's me, Andrew. I'm Andrew Rip and Tear Harshman. It's good to be here.
And I'm Colin, a fiendish devil from the underworld who's come to your world to shoot a fireball in your face and disagree.
We're just we're too excited. We're too excited to jump into our big 50th game that we've 50 and 51st games that we've reviewed here on said Grog Pod, because this is a double-barreled double feature of DoomRL, Doom the Roguelike, and its modern remaster by the same developer, Jupiter Hell. Let's jump into this. I think so what we're gonna do, this is another combined episode here. We'll jump into some stats about DoomRL, some back and forth about it, and then we'll jump into some stats about Jupiter Hell, back and forth on that, and we'll probably cross compare along the way here. But DoomRL released our oldest episode to date. I don't know if I have an exact date here. Someone will correct me in the comments below. Somewhere around 2003. The game is now 21 years old and old enough to go out and share a beer with your favorite DoomRL. DoomRL can only be found on PC for reasons we'll come to in a minute. And it was made and developed by Kornel Hishelevich from Wrocław, Poland, who is known for his work on DoomRL, Diablo RL, Aliens RL, and Berserk! All grandpappies of the traditional ASCII roguelike genre. And I'll lump Jupiter Hell in here as well. And it's worth pointing out that DoomRL shares some DNA with another famed rogue game developer, Derek Yu, who developed the tile set for DoomRL. You might know him from the creator of a little game known as Spelunky. And I think he also did the work for Desktop Dungeons as well. But DoomRL being A, not on Steam, and B, just kind of self-published on the developer's website, it's kind of hard to put into a bucket of like just how popular this is, ? But if the 150,000 plus downloads off of the Chaos Forge website are to be believed, and if we do some kind of hand-wavy math about, well, like you can approximate how many Steam reviews there are based on sales and blah, blah, blah. If we say that like 2%-ish of people who have downloaded that game would have given a Steam review, then DoomRL would shockingly show up on our Steam data set as maybe the 232nd most popular rogue game in our data, which is kind of baffling. Andrew, in the first age, in the first battle, when the shadows first lengthened, one sentence described what you do in the traditional roguelike DoomRL.
Well, Scott, thank you for asking. That's what sentence. Shoot, I already screwed it up. No,
just turn the podcast off now.
You are a marine who exists in space, and you are tasked with all right, look, I skipped the splash screen, but the gameplay, the intro text, I skipped it. So sorry. You are a guy in the Doom universe, and it is up to you to gain the condition to get knee deep in the dead by means of murderizing zombies and sci-fi ghouls and demons, and to rip and tear your way through a procedurally generated dungeon in a grid-based manner with a high level of procedural generation. Is this sounding potentially recognizable as something that's very roguelike. This is firmly in the roguelike genre. No light about it. Light be gone. your
Rogue Dark.
precisely. This has got to be one of the roguiest games that we've played.
I think it's probably the roguiest game we've played since like Cogmind.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of shared. Well, you can see where the DNA, I think, of modern. It feels weird to say modern traditional roguelikes, but I think we have to in order to be extremely specific. Because yeah, games like Cogmind or Tales of Majel or all the other ones that we've done do share all of this same DNA of being like the tile-based, grid-based permadeath RPG. But it's worth kind of dialing the clock back a little bit to 2003 to just kind of figure out where is this game coming from exactly? Because like the oldest game that we played to date, as I frantically type into the microphone here, oldest game that we've played to date has been Tales of Majel, which came out 7 years after DoomRL debuted. And even then, that's like in its extreme early release version. Like we wouldn't see Binding of Isaac or FTL for like 2011, 2012, so a long ways out. And in this world of 2003, like the reigning idea of what a roguelike was NetHack, which I don't know. I don't think that's like within our wheelhouse really to cover, because I'm not sure if any of us have the patience or like the mental stamina to handle something as beastly as an ASCII only game with more is more is the motto for NetHack, I think.
I can handle the ASCII, but I don't know if I can handle the systems.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the systems, I think, is what underscores early 2000s roguelikes is, you have like ASCII and it's like, oh, great, we don't have to worry about all these like lousy graphics and user interfaces and all this stuff holding us back. That means we can input stuff like having your luck meter based on the phase of the moon and that stuff.
I do like that a
lot. And so it is kind of not outlandish to say that DoomRL was pretty revolutionary at the time. Welcome to the Roguelike History Corner, where we talk all about the history. So DoomRL comes in, and instead of having like systems on systems on systems and 50 plus hours of runs, and you can have your game go on for weeks and weeks, this is kind of starting the whole aspect of less is more for roguelikes, and the idea of coffee break roguelikes and things that you can kind of finish in, well, depending on how long your coffee break is at work, an afternoon, or I think for me it took me about 90 minutes to beat it. But yeah, I think one of the major revolutionary things about this game is it's short and sweet and in your face, and really like I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here, but the first level you boot it up with, you are greeted with the titular Doom experience of the E1 M1 soundtrack, which, I mean, maybe more roguelikes need Doom music, but that really just kind of sets the tone for what this game is all about.
It certainly does. It nails absolutely beautifully, like nails the Doom experience despite being a radically different genre. It's pretty impressive.
And Andrew, like, so growing up, so I guess some people will be downloading this episode will be like, oh, I remember playing DoomRL in college and everything. And I think this game came out for us in probably like early high school or something. But when we were growing up, right, Doom was kind of like right on the early cusp of all of our gaming experiences, if available. And I remember, installing the 93 Doom on like 10 floppy disks or something, and being like, yeah, this is pretty rad, and using only keyboard controls to run around in FPS things. I think I wound up being more of a Quake head growing up, but Andrew, I think you're probably more into the Doom scene, because I feel like you're more familiar with like modern Doom modding and such.
A little bit, a little bit. The first FPS that I spent a lot of time with was Duke Nukem, which was, I mean, quite a noticeable departure from Doom in a lot of ways. And the last 2.5D Doom game I played was Doom 64, which was conveniently ported to Steam. Played that a few years ago. It is interesting. It's interesting to see that, like it's the staying power that the Doom engine and the GZ Doom engine, which is, for those who don't know, like a highly modified version, pretty heavily modified version of the original engine, but nonetheless, still, I mean, it can be, it's still based on that original thing. And so much so that like the GZ Doom is being used for a lot of like modern indie games, which is very impressive. And the level of wizardry and everything that's being done with it is pretty cool, pretty outstanding. And but my memories of playing Doom when I was younger was mostly just the first episode, like the shareware version, which I'm sure is a practically near universal experience for a lot of gamers of our age.
Well,
Yeah.
when did you guys get your first computer? How old were you? Like, Doom came out before I had a computer.
Gosh, I feel like the first like real computer that we had was like a compact Presario, which
Ooh.
was like I think just barely able to play Doom and Quake at the time. I don't remember if that required. I don't remember if Quake required like a graphics card or what, but I think yeah, that was like cutting edge tech at the time.
Yeah, I don't think Windows 95. What was before Windows 95? Windows
I think 93.
3.1?
When did that come out? No, I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably around the era that I
So
got.
okay, I'm looking at Windows. I don't think I had anything before 1995. So I don't think I've ever played the original Doom.
Hmm.
It came out before we had a computer, and also is not the kind of game that my parents would have let me buy. Like, just off of the theme alone,
True.
like my parents were not like particularly restrictive about games, but like blast man fight hell demons is like, okay, that's a little bit like blatantly demon stuff.
Yeah, I guess
Uh,
I was like growing up playing like Mortal Kombat 2, Doom, and Quake, and it turning out to be a relatively well-adjusted human being. I think I'm like, okay, maybe those Senate hearings actually didn't have any teeth to them, but
we were a
Perhaps,
Nintendo
perhaps.
household.
See,
well, you could have played it on N64. There you go.
what always gave me a kick was growing up and hearing about like kids in school who weren't allowed to play the Diablo series because their Christian, families said that it was against God. And it's like, and me as a kid being like, well, I mean, come on, you're fighting the devil, so obviously it's a good game, obviously it's good for you. I remember distinctly like I got a copy of Duke Nukem for my birthday, and I was playing the heck out of it. I'd like take the manual to like school and like read it and whatnot. And one time I was sitting outside of my piano teacher's house, while one of my siblings was having their lesson, and my dad's in the car with me, and he's like, "Hey, son, let me take a look at that manual." And like it's extremely detailed and like gives you information on like all the enemies, all the power-ups, all the stuff. And so he's like flipping through it and like seeing like all these guns, all these different weapons, the power-ups, like, oh, one of them is like steroids. Like, oh yeah, that's steroid usage.
When you
That's
get the
fine.
chainsaw.
Yeah, and then like it's talking about how there's these are the sex workers in the game, and how Duke Nukem
Hey, you're
he loves a
paying
little R
them.
and R and all this
You're
stuff.
tipping them very well in that game, I will
Yeah,
say.
very well. And then my dad finishes flipping through this and he goes, "Son, I think when it comes to the video games you play, let's make sure this is the the most mature one that you play. Let's not go any further than this. And I'm thinking like, oh, bingo. Well, this is like the worst as it gets. So it couldn't be. We've already reached the maximum. So I had kind of the opposite issue.
Taking Leisure Suit
That you
Larry off
called.
of your Christmas wish list at that point. Yeah, I think
But
like
anyway, yeah,
I think
this game, yeah, Doom RL. There is, my understanding, there is a Duke Nukem RL as well.
of course. I mean, that's kind of the expectation is like if ASCII, then apply kind of any sort of IP you can to it. Because then, well, you don't have to worry about any sort of graphic stuff. So, there you go. Yeah, I think like DoomRL is very interesting because if you find you can hunt for YouTube videos from ages ago where it's only ASCII, but it's the same game. It's the same game as the one that you can go download now, assuming that the network config file line is doesn't need to be edited, and you can actually run it. And when you boot it up, you are greeted with this amazing splash art of the titular Doom Marine, muscles bulging, fighting off a demon. It looks really good, and it really sets the tone of like you're in a Doom game front, like, and that you can tell was released like, God, was 1993 like just 10 years before 2003? I know that that's what the math
Yeah.
says, but that doesn't feel right.
It was a lot of years of our lives. That's, I mean,
Yes.
I was what, 5 in 1993, so that was two lifetimes after.
It's a great time to start smashing some imps. And even just maneuvering around the menu for the like this main menu, the sound design here is so good. I think this is one of the things I like the most about this game. Is the sound design is so good and chunky. Where like you're moving from like new game to like options. It just has this super satisfying Doom style funk that like, oh yes, this is I'm in. Like 3 seconds after editing the config file, I am in, and you are greeted with quite the text crawl at the start. Well, like also, I guess to be clear, before you even get to the story part, Andrew, are classes normal for Doom games?
Not generally, Scott. That's wild. Wow. Right. Yeah. Right out of the gate, you're getting some unique, interesting stuff. Which, again, you might feel like, oh no, this is such a different genre. This can't possibly be Doom. But they managed to make it work.
Yeah. So you're presented when you start a new game with an option for a few different, I think 3 different classes. You have your standard Marine class, you got your Scout class and your Technician class. And your Marine class is kind of what you expect. It's just beefy run and gun, shoot, take lots of damage kind of stuff. Scout is more kind of swift, tactical, speed dodging. Technician is your nerd class for constructing weapons with this quite interesting assembly system that we'll get to in a minute. But each of these classes has different traits associated with them. You have kind of like your standard stuff at the beginning of like, this trait gives you more health, or this trait gives you more accuracy, or things like that. But there's some that are more that are locked in specific to the main class that you pick. So, for example, if you pick the Marine class, you'll have access to the Vampire Master trait. Or if you pick the Technician one, there's one that I think that allows you to like disassemble weapons and take mods back that you had. Yeah, you can destroy weapons and receive a random mod out of them. But anyway, like it gives you a lot of good RPG stuff to think about, but it's not overwhelming with like, oh my God, there's like a Path of Exile style upgrade tree of zillions of options here, and each one has plus 0.1% new damage and things like that. I think it's actually pretty well balanced and straightforward. But if you're like me and you're just firing up this game, you're like, yes, give me the Marine experience, jump on in. You are greeted with this almost Terminator style red text on black background story start, where you are the titular Doom Marine around Mars, and you're coming back from a long patrol, and you don't know what to do with yourself. You lean back near the comm console and listen for news from your fellow Marines, and then you hear screams over the, I guess, the text. Oh God, no, there's someone there. Gunshots, more gunshots. This can't be happening. Help, help. I'm splat. Jake, where are you? What's Oh, fuck. Bang, bang, bang. Slurp. Silence. Uh, and then bam, you're in. It is E1, M1ing all over. You are running around on the surface of Mars with a couple Mars plants nearby. And that's the start. You are in Doom. You are pistoling down former humans, getting shotguns, and going from procedurally generated level to level. I think there's something like 25 levels or floors of this, to go and fight hell itself at the very end. And for each one of these levels, you have your very standard rogue, or very standard traditional classic rogue style of kind of a maze. But in this case, I think it's a lot more dialed down. It's not quite the volume that you have for like a Cogmind level. It's much more restrained, and like on, gosh, I don't know, like a 1440p monitor, like the whole level just fits right in it, and you can kind of see everything all in one go. And you got exploding fire barrels, acid barrels. You have your former humans, you have your sergeants, you got shotguns, demons, imps. All of the Doom 1993 trappings are there, except maybe minus red and blue key cards. And you're running and gunning, and you have to choose on each one of these levels if you want to continue down a normal level or go on to one of these demonic side branches. Where these side branches are interesting because they offer, it's a risk reward level, that you have your normal your normal Mars base infested with zombies and hell demons, and then you have your hell level infested with zombies and hell demons. But like the second level, for example, your option is, well, like, do you want to continue with the normal one, or do you want to go to Hell's Arena? Like, yeah,
Blood, 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 blood.
take
I
me
believe
in.
is what the text says when you first arrive.
Yeah.
Complete with like a demonic, announcer, "You foolish mortal, you dare," etc., etc. Very fun,
Yeah,
very fun. How
I thought that was
many rounds what did you do in the Hell Arena, Scott?
so the Hell's
Scott
Arena.
was the most accomplished DoomRL player here. We
Well,
should
I mean,
be
accomplished
clear.
in that I've only beaten the Cyber Demon twice, and then summarily got my
Nice.
face smashed in on the first Hell level both times. Um, also on easy mode, which again, I'm appreciative of DoomRL having an easy
Right.
mode to begin with. You have all of your standard "I'm too young to die" and "Hurt me plenty" modes from 93 Doom. But yeah, I thought this was kind of funny, like your first side branch level, which in traditional roguelikes, you have your main kind of branch and your side branches. Again, a very kind of cog-mindy aspect, where those would be going like deeper and deeper down and have like a various theme to it. I'm like, oh, I guess there's just, yeah, some hell announcer. I'm like, for the second level, okay, this is all right. Let's try it. And Hell's Arena, it's just like a standard roguelike arena. You're blasting monsters and cacodemons. And I think there's three or four rounds, and you have the option to stop at any time if it's getting too hot for you.
Hmm.
But if you complete all of the challenges, you get more rewards. You get chain guns, you get rocket launchers, you get more booster pack kind of things associated with it. Obviously, each round is harder than the previous one. But it does give you like again, I'm going to keep coming back to Cogmind. I think Cogmind took a lot of inspiration here. It gives you a lot of good gear up front to get you started on a good run. If you're like, yeah, I'm a pro, I know how to like bait these monsters and demons around. And a lot of the side branch demon levels are kind of like this, where you'll have like more and more escalations of challenge and more risk reward, and a really nice plasma rifle waiting for you at the end of the a military base, for example, or something nice weight. Or, yeah, I think like the BFG 9000 can only be found in one of these in the spider's lair or something like that. And like those things are like worth seeking out because they will make short work of many bosses in this game. Which another aspect I really really like in DoomRL is the so I talked a little bit about the sound before. There's a big emphasis on sound and sound direction here, where you're walking through one of the dungeons and you'll hear like one of these the imp sounds from 93 Doom. I do appreciate that it is like the same one and it has like this kind of janky like MIDI clipped like sound to it where like you'll hear it like coming just in out of vision, it'll go and it just has like that perfect almost B-movie style production value to it, where it's like if it was more polished, I feel like it would almost be taking away from the experience. But it does
so bad it's good. It's wrapped around.
But I guess it's not even really bad per se. It's more charming in its dated application, maybe. Which is fine. Like, it's a 21-year-old game we're talking about here. So enemies will like you'll be playing this and I'm using my headphones to figure out, okay, I know they're behind this door and they're walking away from the door, so I can go in now and blast them. Like there's a bit like a shockingly huge emphasis on sound and using sound to your advantage as you're maneuvering through here, which I really appreciated. And for the boss levels, I thought this was particularly great because you'll come to a boss level and you'll the music will be just so on point. This like really like blamming guitar music. I'm like, okay, I'm surrounded by health packs. I know this is a boss fight coming up, and you'll just hear this like thump, 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 like in the distance coming towards you. You're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And then like two barons of hell will come out and they'll just be like shooting rockets at you, and you're like, okay, let's do this dance. And it feels so much more cinematic and cool of an experience than you would think you would get from just like watching someone play it. It's really something that when you jump in and you're like dancing around them and shooting rockets and baiting them around it, and like it's such a good experience that I never thought I would go in having that with. Just even on easy mode with run and gun, very light decision making. Andrew, did you have a chance to fumble around with the assemblies or the way that you mod weapons in this game?
Interesting. No, I did not.
I think this is
let's talk about the gear. Because perhaps I was not exploring a whole element of the loot.
Which I can't blame you because it took me, I think, I don't know, I put maybe like 10 or 11 hours into DoomRL over since our last episode, and again, like a lot more time than I thought I was going to put into it. And I totally missed on this whole aspect of the game, almost like with dodging as well. But there's like a ton of weapons just kind of floating around. You're like, why would I want to pick up like 6 pistols here? What's the deal? There's the way that you mod weapons in DoomRL is you pick up mod packs, which like a bulk pack will have some kind of effect on like the weapon's capacity, or a power pack will make it shoot harder or something. But there's combinations of these that when you apply them to a weapon will turn a normal rocket launcher into a tactical rocket launcher, a mini rocket launcher, something like that. Shoots faster, can swap
there are
faster,
some
that kind of thing.
synergy sort of things.
There are synergies, but I think one thing that kind of detracts from this is that so there's 3 different mods you can apply. Booster, or no, it's like bulk, tactical, and power or something like that. And I thought, oh, well, surely I can apply any number of these in any combination to any weapon, right?
Surely.
Wrong. There's like, I don't know why the restriction is here, but like you can't, for example, put 2 power packs on some weapons.
Huh. Okay.
And I feel like that's like weirdly limiting in a sense. Again, like, it's in a free open source game. Maybe I could go and like put in the merge request myself if I really cared. But but it feels like that's something that would be interesting to explore to give the game. I mean, there's already plenty of these kind of options available, but I just thought it was sort of baffling that like some of them can't be combined. But another aspect that I
From
totally
looking at the wiki, some of them you can put 2 power packs on.
true, some of them, but not all of them.
But not all
Which,
of them.
yeah, which I'm sure there's reasons 20 years ago why that was the case. Andrew, you posted something in the group chat about dodging, and I was like, huh? What? There's dodging?
Yeah, well, it occurred to me like and to be clear, like I played DoomRL like I don't know, 10 years ago or something, and like just kind of goofed around with it for a little bit, and I was like, wow, that was really neat. Maybe I should put some more time into it, but I didn't for whatever reason. And then interestingly, or ironically, I guess, I ended up gravitating towards an aliens based one, which as in like the 20th Century Fox property, which is all ASCII. There's there, at least at the time that I played it, just because of the subject matter, I guess, which is a very similar game. Anyway, right. So I was playing. So when I played it back in the day, I absolutely did not pick up on this, but it just occurred to me while playing it this time around. You start in the first level. It's big, sort of open area. There's not any like cover or anything to be spoken of. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I mean, this is such a faithful adaptation of Doom. Surely there has to be some strafing involved. Any FPS experience, you got to strafe in order to avoid taking up too much damage. And much to my delight, I looked into it online, and sure enough, if you move in a perpendicular fashion to your enemy, you get a bonus to avoid taking damage, which is, hey, what a great adaptation of mechanics from one wildly different genre into another.
Yeah, and I want to say that like it makes a lot more sense in retrospect as opposed to me like running like parallel away from the enemy as they're shooting in a line at me. I'm like, why am I taking so much damage? Particularly with the Cyber Demon fight where he's shooting rockets at you and you're like dancing back and forth to avoid them. Or in my case, running right up to him and trying to like double barrel shotgun blast him while he's like techno slashing me at the same time. I'm like, all right, one of us is gonna die first.
Techno slash, get him. Yeah.
But yeah, like yeah, I think there's a deceptively deep amount of content and strategy in a game that just kind of on the face of it looks like a something that you could easily cast aside. And yeah, I was very surprised at how much depth there was to a really old game, but you can kind of tell where its legacy has come from and how it's sort of impacted everything down the line. All right, we've talked some about Jupiter Hell, or nope, other way around, DoomRL, and it's worth transitioning to our other game, Jupiter Hell. We'll probably also still talk back and forth about them, but Jupiter Hell was started from a Kickstarter that the developer put out, and
that's right.
The Kickstarter started getting traction, and I don't know if it was because of the Kickstarter or just happened to be bad timing, but ZeniMax, who owned the Doom IP license at the time, sent a cease and desist to our unfortunate developer saying, you got to take down anything having to do with Doom.
I don't think it was because of the Kickstarter. I think it was because that was the year that Doom, the new remake of Doom came out. So I'm guessing that they're like scouring the internet trying to kill all Doom related things that weren't Doom 2016.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that would make sense. And it almost kind of created like a Streisand effect where the Kickstarter was like it was getting there, but they weren't sure if it was going to get over the line funding wise. And then all of a sudden you have this like hero moment of like big bad IP lawyers are coming to knock down the little guy. We got to go and support him. And then I think that got them over the line and got them pretty well funded as a result of it. So And if you go to the DoomRL Chaos Forge website, you'll see everything is branded D asterisk 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 RL or DRL. So you might see like DoomRL abbreviated as DRL, as a way to kind of placate the auto lawyer attacks. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, everything in the game is all Doom.
Doom, D-U-M-E, Doom.
Oh, and our Kickstarter for Jupiter Hell has all kinds of stuff. I think they really swing for the fence with this. But actually, before we do that, I have to do everyone's favorite segment of all the boring stats stuff. So Jupiter Hell released early access on Steam August 1st, 2019, 1.0 August 5th, 2021. Again, another PC exclusive. Developed again by Chaos Forge, our solo dev, Cornell, and published by Hyperstrange, who have published other games like Postal, Brain Damaged, Blood West, Elderborn, and another roguelike, Empty Shell. Jupiter Hell rolls in on our roguelike data set from Steam as the 397th most popular roguelike with 1,733 total reviews. And for this, I actually do have playtime in it. So your average player of Jupiter Hell has about 36 hours of game time in it. Okay, with all that aside, the first impression for this is, wow, this is what roguelikes could be like if they actually had a budget.
Yeah, that's true. The game looks pretty good, that's for sure.
For it is traditional sprites and grid, but like it's quite nice. I feel like it does it captures a lot of the feeling of Doom, without necessarily capturing the cut off MIDI scream of the imp from actual old Doom. So like it does a good job of translating the vibe. How I imagine, you know how we like you play the games that you played in 1995. If you go back and play them now, you're like, I could have sworn it had better graphics than this. Like my brain remembers this being like vivid and real, and this feels like what my brain imagined Doom was. You know, like my child brain says Doom is this.
Mm-hmm.
It is pretty wild firing this game up and playing the tutorial, and for the first time seeing in a traditional roguelike ragdoll physics. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was pretty sad. Like they really did go for everything. They went for like not even like Super Nintendo sprites. They went for full 3D modeled environments. They went for like really cool procedural lighting effects. I don't remember if there's destructible terrain, but yeah,
Well,
like
there is.
the when you shoot a rocket and you see like the enemies just like ragdolling around, pretty great, pretty great.
Yeah, but it still feels it's great though, because it still feels kind of like they're not 2D sprites, but it feels it still has the je ne sais quoi of the sprite based things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does have that kind of 2.5D. Well, it is like a fully 3D environment, but yeah, because of the forced perspective, it does feel like it has that kind of Diablo 2 aesthetic.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's
Totally,
what it is.
And just seeing, like
Diablo
hordes
2.
of monsters ragdoll around is pretty great. But Jupiter Hell starts with a cinematic, an intro cinematic of you are Mike Taggart and you are coming back from your patrol. Story sound familiar? Only to have some, I think the base's automated system shoot you down. And Andrew, to your point earlier about Duke Nukem, you idiots are gonna pay for shooting up my ride. Oh, what? Copyright.
Yep.
And seeing, the shambling zombie monsters coming out of the woodwork towards you, and it starts off kind of in the same DoomRL fashion of you've landed in, you got to blast some monsters, got to figure out what's going on. Ain't nothing more bullets can't solve kind of a deal. And yeah, instead of going from DoomRL where you start on the moons of Mars, you go Phobos, Deimos, Mars, but Mars is actually totally turned into hell. You're, I think, creatively on Jupiter or Jupiter's moons anyway. You're starting from the furthest moons out with Ganymede, then Europa, and then Io, and then you go to some basically the underworld effectively. But I thought that was a nice kind of like neat change. It felt thematically relevant, but also like creatively different.
Yeah, that's the important the unique trademark, very very essential. Yeah, similar but wholly unique and original idea. Yeah, I didn't even catch on to that. Great, good observation and a good calculation by the devs.
Now, along with our increased budget here, I mean, we still have kind of all of the base systems we talked about with DoomRL. We still have weapon modifications. We still have like armor, pistols, shotguns, rocket launchers. The same. It's effectively the exact same DNA and bones of DoomRL with a new modern package. And that's not to say it's just like a shambly put together port. Like it's like you can see the DNA there, but you can see how well it's evolved since. But with that extra budget comes nothing less than voice acting.
Ooh, it's true. It's true.
And
Yeah,
what do we think of our of Commander Shepard voicing our protagonist here?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful work. I personally, again, having played a lot of Duke Nukem when I was a wee lad, very much appreciate the snarky voiceover lines, and but I also understand why some people would not like that, because of course the original Doom guy was basically a silent protagonist, except for like bumping into walls and things. So it's good that there is an option to turn that off or to modify it. It's a slider, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I liked it being there. My favorite of his snarky lines was if you just left the game for a second, like alt tab to look at the wiki or, go do something else for a bit, he'd be like, I'm getting bored over here. Or he'd just start be making fun of you for not playing the game. And it's like, I don't feel like that like very rarely, if ever, happens in other games where it like specifically calls out the fact that you're not playing the game right now. Like, no, I'm paused. How dare you?
How dare you?
It's kind of like the Sonic the Hedgehog toe tapping animation. There was a fun bit that I only just discovered before we hit recording, where if you bump up against a locked door, he'll go, it's locked, or he'll like do other things like fucking locked. And then he'll get progressively angrier the more you bump into it, almost kind of like StarCraft unit clicking style.
Yeah.
You keep bumping and he's like, I told you, it's fucking locked. It's locked. And he just keeps getting angrier. And I'm just like, okay. At first, I was a little, I don't know, I was a little mixed on the voice acting at first, but it kind of grew on me. I thought I have a note written down here that I'm not sure like where on the spectrum between Ash from Army of Darkness or closer to Bruce Willis's little brother it is. But it does, I feel like it skews more towards Ash from Army of Darkness. It does feel like it feels useful also at times where you're like blasting enemies and you want it and like, oh, I want to fire again. And he's like, no ammo. And I'm like, oh, right. Out of ammo. Thank you. Thank you, Mike Taggart.
Thanks, Mike.
For the voice reminder.
For sure. That it serves, it's good that it serves some mechanical purpose as well. So I played this game when it was like basically brand new. But I haven't played it like since then, really. And Scott, you mentioned the voice acting on Discord, and I was like, I have no memory of this voice acting. And I laughed pretty hard when I fired it up for the first time in 3 years. And like the first thing I'm greeted with is a cutscene with the main character talking. I'm like, wow, how did I forget? It's like the first thing that happens.
Yeah, I think the production value here is very well done. and one of my discussion bullet points here is like, does this like level of production value reset the for traditional roguelikes, these grid-based, turn-based games, like does this kind of reset the expectation of like, I mean, obviously selling modern gaming audiences on something like the DoomRL end of the spectrum of like old but good, but kind of clanky interfaces, having to, edit config files, that kind of thing, keyboard only. Well, I guess there is mouse support, but anyway, that kind of stuff. Is this sort of like 3D rendered visual presentation what traditional roguelikes need in order to compete in the modern gaming era?
I think need is probably too strong of a word. I think it helps, but I also think that this is always going to be a niche. Like you're never going to be truly trying to get the like broad mass market appeal with something. Jupiter Hell might be getting closer, but like if you're getting any deeper into the traditional roguelike where you're really getting deep into systems and all of that, I think it's the interactions and stuff that's drawing you to the game, and like ASCII is the pure essence of that, where it's like, I'm reading the matrix and it's just imprinting information into my eyeballs. And I think that is almost an appeal of some roguelikes. And like having nice graphics is fun and good, but it doesn't necessarily, like, I think I could have played this game and had most of the same level of enjoyment with ASCII graphics. Like I think
Well,
it
actually,
would have had.
as far as I remember, I believe there is an ASCII mode to Jupiter Hell.
Oh, oh boy. All right. Let me go look at this.
I'm not now. I don't know if that's confirmed or not. It's like with all podcasts, I will say things into the ether, and people will correct me as is their God-given right to do. But I do believe I remember reading that. I'm like, what are they? Did they like 3D render the left parenthesis or something? Like, how would that even look?
Interesting. I admire that. Nice little Easter egg. I wonder if surely there's an achievement for like beating the game with that on. Um, that's wild. Well, so the closest example, speaking to your question, Scat, the closest example that I can think of is perhaps the XCOM series.
Mm-hmm.
That when the sort of modern XCOM 1 came out, whenever that was, 15-ish years ago, I want to
You're talking about
say.
Enemy Unknown or
Is it Enemy? Yeah, Enemy Unknown. The first time the game was in 3D, I guess is what I mean. That was sort of is sort of what you're describing, taking an old school, pretty like meaty mechanically, and turn-based game, and revising it, updating it for a modern audience. Although I don't know exactly how popular that game was with mainstream audiences, enough to warrant a sequel at least. So I guess I'm saying that I guess it's possible that a traditional roguelike could do this. Maybe with the right IP. I think
yeah,
the
that's the other
IP makes a
thing.
big difference.
The other thing about Jupiter Hell that's interesting is like what Colin was saying, it is Doom in all aspects, and I feel like there's something missing about like the identity or the soul of the game as a result. Like to be clear, I really like Jupiter Hell a lot. I have a lot of fun playing it, but I have a note written down that like I couldn't draw you a silhouette difference between a Ravager and a Reaver is in this game. And I feel like in the Doom property, the Doom IP, all of the, and again, this is like 25, 30 years worth of IP banking that's been going on. So it has a little bit of a head start. But like when you say Cacodemon, like people like who are familiar with that know what that is immediately. And they know exactly like what it's all about and like everything associated with it. A Watcher, like I think in Jupiter Hell, like you can see where the inspiration is from, but I don't know that like it really kind of hits home. Like, for example, boss battles, for example. So like DoomRL, you have like this big build up to like just fighting two, I think they're two battle brothers or something. And it's like this big like build up visually with the level design and the sound effects, and you hear them coming from a distance. Jupiter Hell, I believe most if not all the boss battles are in like kind of a central arena, and you go to them and then you go and fight them. It feels very much more of like, okay, yeah, it's like it it feels less uh impactful. It's still fun. Like it's still fun, but like, you're shooting a big robot versus like a well-known character from a well-known video game series, and it feels less, but I can't really articulate as to why. It's like it's missing like some kind of crucial flavor to it. I don't know.
I hear what you're saying. Like the creature designs and everything in Jupiter Hell are good, but they are missing that classic, like well-known zeitgeist embedded like status. And part of that is just because Doom's been around for so long, but also part of it is that those designs are legitimately like good.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them.
Or even just thinking like back to the Halo series. Like Halo is like very clearly ripped from Aliens, but all of their monster design is like super distinct from Aliens.
Right. Yeah. Distinctness is a very big part of it. Yeah.
And so I feel like there's like, Mancubus equivalent enemies like later in Jupiter Hell. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. But there's some kind of missing thing about like, oh yeah, I remember when I was fighting that, like, could you do a cosplay of one of the enemies from Jupiter Hell, and would anybody recognize it? Is maybe what I'm getting at. And
right.
I don't think this game needs it necessarily. I think it might be one of its weakest points, which is probably an element of praise, because like if that's like the biggest thing I can nitpick, everything else is so well done in terms of like visual clarity. Like one things that bugs me about DoomRL is there's like ammo on the floor. Like I had walked past like rocket launchers numerous times because they blend into the terrain very well. Whereas this, like, items on the floor are these giant glowing almost like traffic signs. You can't miss them. And I feel like it's very clear. It's a hard thing to visually distinctify like 9mm ammo versus 7.62 or something, but it does that, and I'm like, okay, I know where to go and find the ammo for this particular gun I have equipped. Great. Another thing that is helpful is that we talked a little bit about the dodge system in DoomRL being a little opaque. I think it's better here, maybe still a little opaque, but the cover system that you run up, there's boxes everywhere, and we talked about ragdoll physics. Your cover will explode and like shoot stuff all over the place. It's a very nice visual effect. But you sidle up next to something, you have a little green half box next to you. It's like, okay, I'm in cover. And in the bottom corner, it gives you a little blue percentage to say, oh, okay, this is what my dodge percentage. Great. Don't have to do any of that kind of mental math. Very welcome, I think, in terms
I think
of...
it's not opaque. It's opaque and it's in explaining to you how the mechanics works and like what you need to do, but it's very, very clear in terms of if you move, it shows you like what percent dodge you have down in the bottom, or what pain percent or what cover percent, and it gives you the 2-hit percent. So it's pretty clear and open about what you actually have going for you, like what your little like immediate status effects are from dodging around or cover or whatnot, which I did find to be pretty useful. It was a little bit hard to find out. I found it somewhat annoying to figure out what was going to happen in the future. So like okay, if I get this perk, what does that mean for this? Or like there's a gun on the ground, it has a little perk on it. the way that you look at that perk is to pick up the gun and look at it and then decide you don't want it and then put that gun back down and switch back to the gun that you had before, which I found kind of like
It is
it
a little
wasn't,
clunky, yeah.
yeah, it wasn't like bad. It was just kind of like, oh, I wish that there was just another button you could click to see what that perk was immediately,
Mhm.
or how things would affect you in the future. But for the most part, I thought it did a pretty good job of clearly giving you the information that you would want to have.
For sure. And then like going back to the cover system, yeah, I was like never confused about what my cover situation was. And real quick mention, the game should be commended for its tutorial.
Mm-hmm.
I we have 2 weeks to play these games, and I had played it. I'd played Jupiter Hell already, but I realized, oh, I'm gonna have to replay the tutorial, and I put off playing more Jupiter Hell because I'm like, oh no, I'm dreading the tutorial. And then when I finally got to it, I'm like, oh, this is super streamlined and convenient, and one of the better tutorials we've played, I feel like.
It's
Yeah.
very short and it gets across like basically everything in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, if that.
Super
Um,
impressive.
yeah, I had completely forgotten how the cover system works. Go into the tutorial, I'm like, how is the tutorial? And it walks you through all the steps. I'm like, okay, thank you. Um, and yeah, I think that like, yeah, there's so much good stuff. Like this is such a good Trojan horse for I think people who are already in to like shooters or turn-based tactical games. Andrew, like you were saying, like XCOM. This would be a great gateway drug for them into more traditional roguelike kind of games that I'm sure we'll cover in the future as well. But yeah, it has all the trappings of like light RPG building. One thing that kind of bugged me about DoomRL was when you pick your class and your list of traits, which are all have like hilariously over testosterone names to them, like bad motherfucker and like hell runner and all those things.
Yep.
Uh, very chuckle worthy. Make their appearance back again here. But in DoomRL, if you happen to pick certain combinations of things, that can lock you out of like the really top tier master traits. Like, oh, you can't be the ultra omega super badass because you took 1 point in technician. Sorry, can't do
No
that.
nerds allowed.
No nerds allowed. And Jupiter Hell, I think, is a lot more forgiving in that it doesn't have that restriction in it, which I very much appreciate. Um, and yeah, I think that like the active abilities that you have in Jupiter Hell are also I don't know that you would need them in Doom RL, but I'm glad they're here where you have these depending on what class you pick, your Marine, Scout, Technician, etc. You can press a button to have your Fury meter be exchanged for a little bit of health regen. Or if you have an energy meter, you can use that to stealth your way away and get back into a flanking position. Very, very kind of creative stuff. Or you can create like a smoke cloud as well, depending on another class that you pick. And I think like those are all really great ways to augment the play style of the game. So I had a run where I was a Marine and I was unlocked an ability that allowed me to just like press a button to run and you get like a dodge bonus and stuff. But it was great because I could run away from engagements and I'm getting
Mm-mm.
surrounded, hit that run button, see you slow pokes later, and just like run all the way back to the beginning of the level. All right, all my ammo's here. Pick up, pick up, pick up, heal, heal, heal. And then they're coming one by one through the door. Blam, blam. Like the rag dolls are flying all over the place. It's a great time. Um, Colin, how has your boss battle experiences been going?
Not great. I've had frustrating experiences with the boss of the first moon, the bot warden. Um, I mean, I know that the answer is to get good. And earlier when you were talking about playing it on easy, I was like, oh, I should probably play it on easy just because we're have less time, and I was especially time crunched this past 2 weeks. I've been playing it all on medium and just being
Whoa.
like, let's just because I'm a smart boy, right? I know how to play roguelikes. Like I'm not gonna play it on your little pansy boy mode. So
I'm too young to die.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I got pretty frustrated last night. I'm pretty sure I was like I think I got it down to like 4 hit points or something. So I was the next shot would have killed this bot warden thing, and I was like, how was I supposed to have beaten this thing? I
Mhm.
thought I had a good build for it, but it turns out you have to get real close in order for that build to work, and getting close hurt me. Uh,
Well, let me tell you, fellas, here's what you gotta do. You gotta go shotgun mode on this mother. It's easy. You just
what
gotta
was
follow
shotgun
the
mode?
dogma of Doom 1, of Doom 2, super shoddy, not one but two shotguns. And you gotta get in close and you gotta weave and you gotta use cover and boom, 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 boom. And then you gotta run out of shells and then you gotta panic and then you gotta run away and then you get down to 5 health and then you barely get away with smoke grenade. Yeah, I also had some tough times with the bosses, I do declare.
Yeah, I think it should be noted that Jupiter Hell is tough, and I think DoomRL also tough. And I think there's no lost honor in playing on the easiest mode because, like, even I've only played Jupiter Hell on the easiest mode, and it's still really hard, like really, really hard. And because there's again a lot of systems going on, there's a lot of stuff to kind of get your head wrapped around. Um, and once you kind of understand those kind of tactical advantages, then yeah, like you can apply them as needed. But yeah, like the aspect of opening the door, like shooting the explosive barrel like just on the other side of the door to like damage the robot, and then like running around to the other door and then doing the same thing there, like popping a smoke grenade. There's like all these like tactical situations you can apply. Or you can be like what I just did, like was Colin really having that hard of a time? Again, easy mode. I had no idea you were playing on medium. I unlocked the trait Gun Kata for my technician, and which allowed me to dual wield pistols and like shoot them basically at automatic rates. Go in and I just like mowed down the boss that Colin was having trouble with. I'm like, am I really good at this game or is this just easy mode? I think it's easy mode. Because there are also like some of these branches in Jupiter Hell give you very Cogmind style options of like, oh, you like solve this puzzle over here and it has consequences later on. Where you can bypass that fight entirely and you can just like use some key cards and all right, all the bots on that floor are disabled kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think my real problem is that going down the side paths really does give you a lot of good stuff. And I think I was mostly just like, I want to get to the next place, so I just kept going down the main path and
Mm,
not doing the side paths. And I mean, you literally just you get more levels and you get more perks from the levels, you get
yeah.
better stuff. Uh
There's a lot of options in Jupiter Hell for like different play styles. There's challenge modes, but there's things I think they're called trials, which are like run modifiers. And one of them, Colin, you might be interested in, is like
easy
it's
mode.
like it's easy mode, I think, and also like there's like a streamlined version where there's fewer levels. I think there's like no or like basically no branches. And it's like the more kind of distilled quintessential, it's almost like the DoomRL-ified version of Jupiter Hell. And like the terminals that you come across don't have any like story stuff. It's just like only just give me the stuff to shoot. Just give me something to shoot. Um aspect of it. And there's I don't know, like there's 5 or 10 of those kind of different game modes that you can apply here. So I think those might be worthwhile to explore for people that are looking for like yeah this is interesting but I want to get to the later levels faster. This kind I think gives you that route to explore, and then once you're familiar with the late game a little better, then you can open it up to like your archangel of death mode of running around with pistols only and you can't pick up ammo or what have you because you're such an uber badass. um which I think is welcome because some of the later levels in Jupiter Hell are really cool. Like You go from Ganymede Station, and it's kind of stereotypical space station, to Europa, which is like this like ice environment, which is very well done. I think the visuals in this game look great in terms of like the environment design.
Yeah,
Um,
Super Doom 3, which I
mm,
have a lot of nostalgia for and I appreciate.
uh, was Io in Doom 3 the lava level with all of the
Uh I
Well,
mean,
they were
like
all
in
on
the
Mars,
hell
right?
sections, I suppose.
yeah. Um, and then yeah, after and again, like I as you know, an Astro Geek, I appreciate this where like you're going from like the moons of Jupiter, but it's like it's also relevant where like Europa is an ice moon and Io is a lava moon, and then you know, and then you go to Dante, which is the underworld moon of Jupiter that everyone's familiar with. Uh,
Yeah,
and
you wrote your thesis on that, right,
yeah,
Scott?
that's the one, the Dante moon. But yeah, like there's a lot of neat stuff to explore later on. I was running through the Europa moon, one of the branches, I think it was Europa, and one of the branches there, there's like this big, huge frozen temple that's being excavated, spoiler alert. And you run through, it's like, oh, all these like pickups here. And like the more pickups you pick up, the like a text thing comes up across the screen and be like, you're getting greedy, mortal, dot dot dot. Like, yeah, but nothing bad is going to happen if I pick up this ominous frozen heart at the center of the cathedral, right?
Hmm.
Monsters galore spawn in. I hit that run button, skedaddle out of there as fast as I can. I'm like, oh, sweet, I've got this cool frozen heart I can use for something later. Like this game is kind of filled with all sorts of stuff like that, which is super fun. Yeah, I think like if you have the patience to play on easy mode and mow enemies down with dual wielding Uzi 9 millimeters, then yeah, I think it's worth your while. One thing that people wanted us to kind of point out was what do you think of the idea of corner shooting? This was a thing in DoomRL where in order to, and I appreciate that Jupiter Hell doesn't really require this, that like I think a lot of high level play in DoomRL abuses the game system where you are like, for example, there's one thing called radar shooting where like you'll take a shotgun and you'll just like shoot it off into the off screen, and if you hear a monster, you'll know a monster's out there or like what direction they are. Corner shooting, I think, is like the idea of like circle strafing around pillars of the game and kind of like abusing your ability to like shoot like one tile over more than they can back at you. Um, and for like when I was researching, like, well, how do I get good at DoomRL? Because I keep dying to the stupid cyber demon. Seeing tactics like that, I'm like, I don't know. It feels kind of cheesy. It feels like it's sort of like a band-aid applied to this really old game. But I never really felt that I needed to abuse the game's mechanics for Jupiter Hell at all. Was that everyone else's experience? Did it feel kind of like relatively straightforward?
I think so. I feel like what you're describing with the corner shooting, is it?
That's yeah.
I mean, could be expounded in and developed into like an interesting game system. But like, the official game systems, the non, pro strat exploits that exist in Jupiter Hell are interesting enough.
Yeah, I don't generally like the if it's an exploit type system where it's like, oh, the only way for you to know that this is a good way to do it is to like looked it up on the forums. Um, I feel like the longer we've done this podcast, the more I've become insistent that the game mechanics be properly and adequately explained within the game itself.
Hmm.
I think that's a flaw of a lot of games is that they're just like, well, you have a wiki, yeah, they'll just go look that up. And it is true, but it's kind of annoying. And like this, like Jupiter Hell and DoomRL are popular enough games that the wikis are like complete and accurate. But for a smaller game, sometimes it's like, oh well, this is just a wiki stub, so you just don't know how that mechanic works. And I just I want the game to be played. I want the mechanics to be explained and like, oh, the best way to play is to like strafe around a corner and use the like aim mechanic thing. Like Independently discovering that would be pretty cool, but
Mm-hmm.
not independently discovering it and just being like, I'm bad at this game because I don't know about this thing would be frustrating. I don't think that's anything that I mean, I think I'm just bad at Jupiter Hell because I haven't played that much yet. I don't think that it was that I was missing some core mechanic of the game. I knew everything, I just wasn't using it, synergizing it correctly yet.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in.
There were plenty of times where I was like, oh right, I probably should have shot that explosive barrel. Oh right, I think I had a smoke grenade. I think I should have probably run away rather than just try face tank this warden bot machine gun to the face.
As someone who has also put in a lot of time into Cogmind, Colin, how would you would you say Jupiter Hell is in that realm of like really crunchy tactical roguelike strategic decision making?
I think that yes and no. I think that the decision points are at slightly different points. Like for Cogmind, so many times the correct answer is to run away. And so it's the fight or flight decision is the really like crunchy decision in Cogmind versus Doom or Jupiter Hell. The crunchy decision is how to get into tactical cover because you're gonna fight all the people. Like I feel like a failure if I leave a level without having killed every single enemy on the floor, which is that's not like a feasible way to play Cogmind or even some of the other, some like Jupiter Hell. Your goal is to kill everything, not necessarily just to get through the level as fast as you can and like pick up the stuff and grab and like sneak away.
Yeah, it is a fundamentally different leveling system. I did have a discussion point of like, should you just like get a free upgrade point when you get to the elevator? And I think it's probably no, but at the same time, like, yeah, it is a totally different game because it's killing the monsters is what gives you XP in DoomRL and Jupiter Hell. So you are incentivized to go through the level and hunt them down in order to gain levels. Like that's the ethos of Doom in a nutshell, right?
Right.
I mean,
for a generic roguelike, I might say, yeah, you should get some points when you go down the level. But for a Doom roguelike or a Doom inspired one, it's like, well, no, the point of this game is to shoot things with a shotgun in the face. And
rip and tear.
I can't there were so many times where I was playing this where I found myself like when I was trying to charge across a gap to like hit something and get up close, I would click the forward button really fast, even though I know that the clicking the up arrow faster will not make me move faster in the game. Or like, you get sucked into the momentum of the game really easily, which is not something that something like Tales of Maj'al, like that very rarely happened. That was it. Every action is a very thought out action. Didn't usually get swept up in the like run and shotgun something.
Yeah. There are some neat kind of animation related Easter eggs in this game too. Like what you're describing, where like if you run and you keep holding down that button, which you shouldn't, like, should you do that in a turn-based game? You'll notice that like the character will like start leaning forward more in like a running posture. Because like the game almost becomes like super hot in a sense of like, all right, now it's like full action mode. And also if you have one of the perks that allows you to continuously shoot enemies while you're moving, it has this like this game would look amazing. I've got to look up some speed runs of this game because this game is just gonna be wild for like people doing like 20-minute speed runs of the whole thing where they're just like running and gunning and shooting. It'd probably look like a very Doom style experience. Which I think is one of the things they were complaining about with their trailer design was people thinking that this was like a real-time action game. Or like how do you get across that it's turn-based but also like this very fluid animation system at the same time. Like what Andrew was describing with XCOM earlier, right? You move your unit, you shoot, there's an animation of them shooting. It's like a 5-minute long process for you to figure out that you missed your 95% shot at the monster. Whereas with this, it's like the animation and of moving and shooting is simultaneous. which is like it's a super subtle thing. But you know how like in Cogmind where like there's 100 enemies on the screen and like you shoot one of them, then you have to wait for the next one to shoot, and then the next one to shoot.
Right. It like ripples down
Hmm.
as each one is like deciding what to do.
Yeah, there's something to be said for the this I don't know what system they use for that kind of for that engine, but like it's so streamlined and it feels like why don't all traditional roguelikes have this? Or like all turn-based, mystery dungeon roguelikes even. It feels like, how did we ever live without this in this kind of turn-based um system, I feel like.
I mean, I do think that there is something, it does not give you perfect information. Like things could happen fat. Like if all of the enemies had like a lot of different things they could do, I could see it being hard to follow what was happening. But most of the time, it's like this guy has a gun and he's shooting at me, and I'm also shooting at him. So like, there's not a whole lot of like information that you need to take in besides did
Mhm.
I get hit or did he get hit? Versus if you're in like Cogmine, you're like, okay, I really need to know like what are the status of all of these things. Or like if you're playing Tome, it's like, okay, I need to know, has this orc warlord guy, has he triggered his barbarian engaged thing? Because if yes, then I need to run away for 3 turns until that cools down and my thing cools down so I can like you need to know like exact turn counts and you
Mhm.
able to
Mhm.
like see things and know when they happen versus like the simplified nature of Jupiter Hell lets you get away with having that smooth, like I don't need to know that information quite as intensely. I can just run in and blam stuff with my shotgun and that feels great.
And I think that's a excellent way to mention that the flow state of this game is very good. Very good indeed. You're just clacking away, 2 hands on the keyboard, having a good time, clearing levels, blasting enemies, and listening to that cool soundtrack, that groovy soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's very
Oh,
fun to
sorry.
play.
Keep
Not as,
going on soundtrack.
oh yeah, well, oh no, I wasn't gonna totally go do a dissertation on that. But yeah, it is a surprisingly surprisingly. Sometimes I think turn-based games are maligned as being boring, and this game is anything but. It's quite engaging, almost at all times.
Um, I thought it was like I've ended up playing most of the games we've played, even the turn-based traditional roguelike ones with a mouse. I think this is the one of the first ones I played entirely no mouse whatsoever and did not feel like that mattered in the slightest. They did a
I
really good
will
job of like letting you get all of the information, navigate everything super easily without needing to use a mouse. Mouse would be slower and worse.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that like DoomRL has like more intuitive native mouse support. I'm not sure if Jupiter Hell needs it, but I was pleasantly surprised at how well Jupiter Hell has support for um joypad support. So like for Xbox controllers, because I was playing this on the Steam, like I think I played Jupiter Hell on the Steam Deck more than on my desktop computer. And it it works really well. Like I spent, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 hours trying to configure the DoomRL keybinds for the Steam Deck, and once you get it going, it works pretty well. Um, but yeah, Jupiter Hell, I felt like it was weird how well it worked with a controller, and the keyboard also felt very very intuitive and useful, and like all of the buttons, like it tells you on this like press M for more info. I'm like, oh, I yes I will. Uh, the music, I think, Colin, I think you were alluding to. I think the music in DoomRL is much, much better than Jupiter Hell. I think kind of with that same aspect of like it's missing the soul element. Like obviously the DoomRL stuff is aping from uh what was the note that I have in here? The DoomRL soundtrack originally came from the Doom 3 classic mod uh where Sonic Clang developed it, like that music specifically I think for that mod. So, it has this kind of like, and obviously, it's remixed and inspired from OG 93 Doom, but you can see where that soul and inspiration comes. And I was thinking like, well, even if you took E1M1 out and you just had all of the rest of like, the Doom inspired music, but stuff that like I don't really think of a whole lot in Jupiter Hell, I think that would be like an absolute slam dunk. And for the most part, I felt like the Jupiter Hell soundtrack sort of fell flat for me. It definitely didn't have that kind of oomph for boss battles where, we played on our summer special, the Unholy Cathedral music. Like that is Doom ass music for a Doom ass boss fight. I don't think I ever really got that kind of um, aesthetic point in Jupiter Hell. Not that the game really needed it per se, but it would have been a welcome addition, I think.
It definitely doesn't have anything that stuck in my head. Like I'm
Mhm.
I'm on my other screen right now, like trying to find the music and listening to it, and like I have no memory of any of these songs. Like my brain has just filtered out the music entirely. Like if you said, did it have a soundtrack? I'd be like, probably. It's
Probably.
there. It's just not like something to write home about.
I think the Jupiter Hell, I mean, is trying to do something very different when it comes to the music. Doom, like the original Doom and DoomRL, all the tracks are like very thrash metal, which tend to be kind of, a little faster, a little poppier, more like melodic, more like earworm
Hmm.
type of tracks. Whereas Jupiter Hell is going for stuff that's a bit more atmospheric
Yeah.
and black metal, death metal sort of. So I do want to call it specifically in the Valhalla spaceport, which is where you fight the warden bot or whatever. It has this a little bit of a faster guitar riff as sort of its main the main part of the melody, which is a welcome kind of change, and I think is meant to sort of is to complement the boss fight. But that's accompanied by some vocals, which are come in the form of this like yelling that is being like echoed and kind of has this cool chanting sort of an aspect to it. And
Hmm.
I thought that was really interesting and uh and while again not as catchy as like the original Doom soundtrack, I admire that they went for something perhaps a little more, I don't know, elevated, something a little deeper, if
A
you
little
will.
refined.
But that's coming from, I mean, I don't know, that's coming from like a metalhead who gravitates towards thrash metal generally and power metal and like melodic stuff.
I was
So
really
maybe
kind of surprised that they didn't have some kind of more on the nose E1M1 inspired track to kick the campaign
sure.
off with.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a good idea that they don't kind of poke the bear too much with the IP lawyers. But, yeah. Well, do we want to jump into rankings?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, Colin, kick us off with our rankings here.
Uh, I'm going to give Jupiter Hell a 7, putting it right in the middle of a bunch of other 7.0s. I thought it was a pretty good game. There's definitely some stuff that, like, I found for the most part, there was like the flow state was fun and good and interesting. And there were a couple of times where I just felt like there weren't enough levers to pull. Um, Especially in the boss fight, or just like there were a couple times where I just got kind of trapped and I'm like, well, there's no way I could have won this. Probably mad cause bad. Uh, but uh, yeah, like there was a lot of stuff I liked about it, and but maybe not anything that was so like some there's nothing that pulled it in so it was like, oh yeah, this is just a great game. There was a lot of stuff that made it a good game and very little that made it a bad game.
Mhm.
So like I can see, but I can definitely see where someone could love this game a lot. I could see you getting in a real flow state playing it. I could see myself playing it a lot more and like getting better at it and being like, oh no, Colin, you're an idiot. You should have liked this more. So I'm probably going to play more of it. And so that's probably the greatest compliment I can give.
I think I'll go next. I'm gonna put Slate DoomRL here as a 7.2, tying it with Warsim. Uh, and Jupiter Hell is an 8. Um, I think DoomRL, I was pleasantly surprised at how much fun I had with it. Like I didn't expect to go in like having a fun experience. I thought it was gonna be like a net hack style, like, oh, you gotta wait for the phase of the moon to be right in order for all this stuff to work. But no, it's very much a um very straightforward game that I think like has a um surprising amount of depth to it. I think it's still worth checking out, even if it is 20 plus years old and can enroll in the Martian military itself. You might have to, if you're listening to this, you're like, I want to check this out, and you might go download it, and it fails to boot. You might have to go and edit some config files, setting the network connection line in the config Lua thing to false. I don't know why that's still troubling things up, but I feel like that's kind of emblematic of these sort of older games in general. And I feel like it has this really great legacy of like games at the time trying to boil the ocean and putting feature after feature in there, and this feels so much more streamlined and focused, that you can really just like, all right, this time I'm going to focus on doing this thing and not get distracted about all the other stuff. Jupiter Hell, great game. Have fun every time that I'm playing it. Only just beat the Harbinger's Throne yesterday, and yeah, I thought it was fun. Could stand to have maybe a little bit more lore, I think, to it, a little bit more kind of like individualized flavor. I think it's fun. I think it is definitely a really solid intro to the traditional roguelike space. It has all of like the graphic stuff that your standard Call of Duty player would find interesting. And yeah, I think it's totally worth a shot.
Right on. So both these games speak to me on a lot of levels. My love for FPS games, my enjoyment of the brutal metal aesthetic and sound, of course, and but also from like a development standpoint, I really admire what the devs have done, and it's really great to see this awesome decade-spanning fan project culminate with an original, full-fledged, basically AAA, I don't know, two A's and a half production is really great. And also, both of these games get a lot of points because of how roguey they are, but still maintaining to be being able to maintain accessibility and just sort of like baseline fun. And one of the points was something that was kind of fun when I booted up, I should say, Jupiter Hell for the first time, was that I discovered my I went and looked at my high score list, because of course it keeps track of all your runs, like any good roguelike. And I like both of these games enough to have actually bothered to put some thought into my character names. So I got to look at my high score list of all the goofy names that I'd come up with, which were all supposed to be kind of, faux macho mystery science theater, informed stuff, including some wonderful, very serious character names like Sean Off Shotgun, Butch Butcherson, Ricky Rod Iron, and my favorite, Cal Astrotuff.
One of my coworkers is named Mike Butcher. I feel like maybe I'll have to play as him next run.
There you go. Absolutely. That's a perfect Doom guy type of a name for sure.
Big McLarge huge.
Precisely. And yeah, anyway, all that being said, I think that again, the fact that these games are true roguelikes really kind of bumps them up in my personal rankings. So I'm going to give both DoomRL and Jupiter Hell a rating of 8.1, putting them in my ranking list as number 6.66, baby. All right.
Whoa, look at that.
Keeping it metal.
We've made to be.
And what would Will's score have been? We do not know. He is
Negative
unfortunately absent.
6.66.
Negative, yeah, probably. But he'll be back soon. It should be noted.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's going to put Jupiter Hell as our new top traditional roguelike on our rankings list. Coming in at lucky number 13, which is very poignant. Yeah, so some similar games.
Ooh, just barely beat out Cogmind by 0.03.
Yeah, but
score.
Will's anchoring down that rating pretty well there. So
yeah, don't worry. When he plays Jupiter Hell, he'll pull it down.
So some similar games if you're like, yeah, more to explore. I want to give me some recommendations here. DoomRL, I think the other games created by the developer Aliens RL, Diablo RL, Berserk, worth checking out. We mentioned Cogmind a whole lot in this episode. It's like DoomRL on super steroids with a modern interface. There's one also by the Cogmind dev that I think is supposed to be an XCOM ASCII roguelike called XAtCom. Actually, let me double check if I have that right. Of course, the first thing that you get when you Google that is former Twitter, and now I'm trying to figure out XAtCom roguelike. Okay, yes, it is XAt_com. It's not the horror show. It's not the pit of screaming demons that former Twitter is. It's an actual ASCII roguelike. Jupiter Hell. This one was kind of funny. I thought there's a bunch of these YouTube videos going around like, guess what, guys? They finally made Doom into a roguelike called the Doom Infinite mod, which I think is it's actual like Doom. It's a like a the mod system for OG Doom that I'm spacing on the name of. But it's like that with like Enter the Gungeon style roguiness, if you can imagine. So like gun drops and enemy stuff like that. But I think it's very funny that all the stuff that we talked about today, their branding in that YouTube video is, imagine Doom and then imagine a roguelike and imagine if you combined the two. But that might be worth checking out for the Doom aesthetic, especially if you're more into the kind of actiony FPS end of the spectrum. Some more that are kind of in the turn-based zone of traditional roguelikes would be, I always forget the name of this game, so I'm glad I wrote it down. Dead Not Signal Lost is like if you were watching like the little dots from like the Aliens movies of like the little radar dots of them like running around. It's like that, the roguelike. Xenomarine, Quasimorph has a very banging metal soundtrack. Sword of the Stars, The Pit, previous episode. And then one that I'll put on here, not because it's aesthetically similar at all, but Tangle Deep is one that has a very good modern like SNES style interface to it, traditional roguelike, but very high production value, just like Jupiter Hell does. Maybe more of kind of like the 16-bit era, but definitely worth checking out for sure. Okay. And yeah, I think that's gonna wrap up I think our Berserk power up here is wearing off after 90 minutes of blabbing here. So we're gonna wind down with our email that you can write in with your fun stories of installing Doom on 10 floppy disks to grogpodzone@gmail.com. Whenever I post stuff on our Mastodon, grogpod@gamedev.place, tangentially related to DoomRL, there's an amazing amount of people out there that come out and say, "Oh, I remember playing this game 15 years ago," and like having all of like these people that I never thought would have had such a fondness for an old, potentially obscure game come out and appreciate it. grogpod@gamedev.place. You can see me posting pictures of my cat in my lap playing DoomRL on the Steam Deck, should you be so desire. And all of our rankings and ratings and other apocrypha and stuff is on the website at grogpod.zone. Our next episode, Scott, what do you have lined up for us? Well, Scott, our next episode is one that I was pretty distracted by while prepping for our combined episode here. Polish up those D6s, folks, because you're going to be throwing a lot of them. We are playing Slice and Dice, the extremely dice heavy combat game, where it does exactly what it says on the tin. There are dice and you are slicing. But I am very excited to check this game out in more depth, because there's a ton of stuff in here. And each run can be as short as you want it, and each run can go on for 15 plus hours if you really wanted to.
Oh.
There's a lot of fun stuff to check out. Yeah, that'll be an exciting one. Very likely a game that we can convince Will to come on and have a good time with. So, yeah, that's going to wrap up our 50 and 51st games of the podcast. And to play us out will be some good music for when your demonic presence is at unsafe levels. We'll have to put the podcast lockdown in effect.